and I was outside Downing Street, where a group of us there, waiting to photograph Churchill as he came out, as he would. Normally you only get one shot, and he did, and he came out and he put his hand up there, made the sign, and we all took pictures, except for one agency photographer, I forget his name. He stopped Churchill and prayed and said, "Please, will you do it again, sir?" And Churchill turned to him and said, "Sonny, you must learn to shoot them on the wing." And that's one sentence from one person that I do remember, that this poor lad was not going to get his picture for the second time. So I've frequently been asked how it was I managed to become a press photographer, and it's pretty simple, and too simple for some, because sometime in the Air Force, when I was working, taking pictures for the RAF, I met a chap, a flight lieutenant, who was a press photographer in Manchester, and his story so intrigued me that it sounded like a jolly good job. So, having come out of the Air Force and into Civvy Street, I realised that, what are you going to do? I haven't got a job. And I thought, well, one job is the one you heard about from that flight lieutenant who was his name was White, the same as mine, working in Manchester, Manchester newspapers, and I came out and into Fleet Street, and then I realised that why don't I take him up on this? And I was talking to my father, and he said, well, I know somebody on the graphic who probably is a friend of the editor. So I said, well, I'm having a word with him. So Dad had a word with the Daily Graphic, as it was then called, and I got an invitation from the editor to come and see him in London, and so I got ready and I went up to London, and I made an appointment. I had an appointment with this editor, and his name was Maurice Watts, and I told him that I said, I'm a press photographer. He said, oh, we could use you. And I no way was that I a press photographer, never seen anything about it at all. Just knew what I knew, having talked to this guy from the Daily Mail up in Manchester when I had during the war. So that worked very well, and I was in spite of all the unions and everything else, and sure enough, he made me a press photographer.
And how many other photographers were on staff at that time, Geoff, on the Daily Graphic?
Oh, at least about 8. Some were trying to specialise. Stanley Devon did aerial pictures, and I think quite amused himself with that. There were sports photographers who were good at football. I tried some of that, but I was never interested in sport as such, because all you could do is to sit beside a soccer match, set the distance you were going to go, because you couldn't change focus. It was too much. You could set the camera on 7 yards and hope the action happened to within 7 yards. And if it didn't, you didn't get it. I mean, it was a muzzy. I did do quite a bit of tennis. That is easier because you've got a very good idea that it'll happen between 5 and 7 yards, and it will be sharp. And that was always full of action. Gorgeous Gus's pants was a talking point. I was asked to see if I could get some funny pictures with a camera, and I thought up of a couple of chaps from the Middle East being head up for parking on a no parking area. It's quite good. The lady who got caught under buying a carpet, her legs were still sticking up. No, I wouldn't say they were popular, but they always, if you could raise a laugh, then that was good enough.
You joined the Graphic in 1946, and by 1951 you'd won the Press Photographer of the Year competition.
Yes, extraordinary. That really shook me rotten. It seemed to me that everybody working in pictures for the newspapers were trying jolly hard to find the best pictures, and it would take, and could take, years and years before you ever acclaimed such an honour. I didn't know much about it. I just took it in my stride, and in 1951, having started in 1946, they really felt that I had amassed enough pictures to go in for this competition. Put them in, and they won. And I was the Photographer of the Year. Wonderful. After so short a time. Yes.
And of course you've won many individual categories over the years.
Oh yes, they're going on all the time, and one picks up the feature picture of the year, news picture of the year, sports picture of the year, and I've won nearly all of these over a period of time, and really Geoff White was becoming a bit of a household name, having won so many of these accolades, which really wasn't a lot of trouble. It was just all much effort. One did the job, and if you were lucky enough, you were there when it happened, and with a bit of luck, nobody else was. That was certainly a criterion, and if you managed to do it and nobody else got it, then it became a scoop, and a scoop was something which everybody wanted, but very few people managed to get. Well, this was one of the game shows at the Albert Hall, and knowing what they were trying to do was arrange all these scouts underneath me as a camera in the roof. I was talking for a long time to Ralph Reeder and saying, could you straighten out the third row or the fourth row or the fifth row, and he got bored, and he realised I was going on too long, and he wanted to get it arranged. So the picture came. That was the picture, but it took ages to try and straighten out, not a very good term, straighten out the circles, and that was difficult. You are trying to convey the story in one picture, preferably. Oh, this is one of my most difficult assignments. When we had the relief of Bimbrook, the aircraft air station had no food, and they had to fly in food by Dakota, and it was many miles from London, and I went by train to Market Raisin, then I got a car, and I got nearer and nearer until eventually we couldn't move the car any further, and we were bogged down in the middle of the night, and started to walk, and we walked to the station, and we got there just at the right time. We walked out into the airfield, and a Dakota came over, dropped his chutes, and these are the parcels arriving on the airfield, which is a great relief to myself, having got the story. That was a one-off, a scoop, as you might say. I thought of the picture that one has in mind with somebody punting down the river and the chap with the punt falling off because he gets it stuck or something. And I thought there's got to be a picture of this, and I saw a boat full of coxes. There were 3 of them there, and one was punting, the other 2 laying there enjoying the sunshine. And I asked them if they would do it. Could you fall off the punt for a picture? And one of them said, yes, I'll do that. And that shook me. I thought, oh, there we go. And we got it organised, and the chap ready with his punting pole. And he took a flying leap, and off the punt he went. I was no more surprised than King Karoo. He actually was called Armstrong Jones, and it was Armstrong Jones, you recall, who eventually married Princess Margaret. Well, one fascinating picture amongst my collection is that I was going up Haverstock Hill. I fell upon some children in a horse trough, having the time of their life as their own personal swimming pool. So, yes, this was quite amusing, and I took some pictures. And at the same moment, along came a speed cop on his bike. He parked the bike alongside and asked me, have I got permission to do this, sir? And I had to tell him that I fell upon it. It was nothing to do with me. I didn't set it up. I wish I had. But so he left me, and he went over to the children, and I photographed him with these children, all looking at the police, wondering what the police were going to do.